Vegeta, what does the scouter say about his
monthly bill?
It's over 9,000! What, 9,000? There's no way that can be right!
Hello, and welcome to James, the Lesser Express Line, where we get you in and out as fast as possible with, yes, DSP is going to talk about Toriyama. Let's just try to get through this together.
One of them is shockingly good news, which is great. But you know, I feel like we should just start the show with the big elephant in the room, the thing that literally everyone across the world is talking about today. Ladies and gentlemen, is very sad news. We have lost one of the most iconic pop culture artists and creators of our time. The man behind the character designs, artwork, and a lot of other input into series such as the original Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, which many people don't even realize it's the same show. It just, there's a time lapse between Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, but it's literally the same show continuing on, the same manga turned into an anime.
Yes, DSP, no one connected Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. No one went, huh, this guy Goku in Dragon Ball looks a lot like this guy Goku in Dragon Ball Z. Oh, they even have a guy named Krillin that's short and bald. Amazing. Oh, and this Goku kid in Dragon Ball, yeah, he was with some girl named, I think, Chi-Chi. There's another girl named Bulma. Wow, Dragon Ball Z also have a lady named Chi-Chi and a lady named Bulma. Huh. And there's some Master Roshi guy in both. Wow. Whoever wrote Dragon Ball should probably get a hold of the guy who wrote Dragon Ball Z and yell at him like, hey, you stole my show. Oh, wait, DSP. Holy fuck. This is going to be so hard to get through. I'm so sorry.
Dragon Quest, the entire video game series. Chrono Trigger. Sandland. And that's just to name a few of the projects that this man has been directly involved in creating. I'm talking about Akira Toriyama has passed away at the age of 68. Unexpectedly. People did not know that Mr. Toriyama was actually ill. Apparently he was kind of keeping it a secret. And he was actively involved in developing many projects. And now that he's gone, a lot of people don't know what's going to happen with those projects because he was spearheading them. This is incredibly sad, but what I'd like to do, rather than focusing on the...
Does the Side Scrolls podcast, no snorts. Cat sitting next to him, no snorts. Toriyama dies? Really, DSP? Fucking stop it.
Loss. You know, I want to celebrate the life and the work, because just to give you my perspective, which is the best thing I can do to honor someone like this, right?
No, it's not.
When I was growing up in the 1980s and 90s, okay, Japanese culture did not have much effect on the United States at the time.
Really, DSP? In the 80s and 90s? When you had Nintendo? I wonder where Nintendo's... Oh, Nintendo's from Japan. Anime... Alright. Cleveland International Records. May have heard of them. Guy named Meatloaf. Bat out of hell. They brought in the manga I Seen It. Because they saw that their rock magazines being translated from France and Germany were like, oh, they're doing really well. We're actually making more money off these than we're off our music. Something else out there. And that's when someone said, hey, there's this thing called manga in Japan. And they brought it to America, translated it, sold it to schools. They were making so much fucking money off of this that they went out and bought more manga. And then when anime was a thing, guess who got into that? Cleveland International Records. I know, being an Ohio guy, alright, maybe I care more about that than anything else, but I just... Holy shit, DSP. What the fuck? And that was like 1972, I think? But no, in the 80s and 90s, Japan had no influence, guys. No influence. Not like they had a bunch of stuff in America since 1972. At the least, from one aspect. Again, that's not counting Nintendo. That's not counting Sony. That's not counting Toshiba. The fucking Walkman. The Sony Walkman. That was huge. One of the things that helps sell music like tapes and CDs is that Sony's like, hey, want to be able to listen to it on the go? we got you covered. But then again, DSP hates music. So would he care that? Oh, hey, one thing is to help sell tapes and CDs is the fact that you could take them anywhere with you with the Sony products from Japan. Toyota. I'm sure Toyota didn't exist until 2002, right? Toyota never existed until the 2000s, guys. Oh, wait. They may have existed a little bit before that. Just saying. They may have. But, again, it's DSP, so. And actually, I just Googled it. August 28th, 1937. I wonder when the first Toyota was sold in America. First Toyota sold in U.S. Oh, pops right up. 1957. But again, Japan didn't exist in America until the 2000s, apparently. Not in the 80s or 90s, or anytime before then. Again, this is going to be a long-ass video. I'm so sorry.
I think the biggest thing was that song, I Think I'm Turning Japanese. Remember that song? So it was kind of like, we were aware of Japanese culture here, but it certainly didn't have any kind of a heavy influence on anything here. And then all of a sudden, on TV, you started seeing what was definitely syndicated shows, such as the original Dragon Ball, okay, which was on TV before Dragon Ball Z. A lot of people just didn't know what it was. It had actually been so popular in Japan that they had syndicated it and brought it over to the United States and started playing it as a very early morning cartoon around the late 80s and early 1990s. And I remember...
And of course, coming out in theaters soon, is another Godzilla movie. Oh, where's Godzilla from? Fucking Japan. Those movies have been coming out for decades. Those movies have been influencing Americans for decades. The robot pilot craze, guess where that started? Japan. I'm sorry to keep on this, but I'm just trying to think of, like, off the top of my head, of the stuff that Japan did that then America either copied or tried to make their own or was influenced by. Yeah, like the Gundam style shows being carried to America. Power Rangers. Holy fuck. Oh, there was no such thing as anything Japanese in America in the 80s and 90s. Fucking Power Rangers, bitch. That was totally the 90s. Fucking hell.
I remember watching this show and thinking, what the hell am I watching? The art style is so different from what we would see as an American cartoon that it blows your mind. You're like, what am I? It's so odd. The characters have this weird, almost like childlike design to them. Why are all of their eyes so gigantic? Right? That was the first time I saw a cartoon where everyone had the big, oversized anime eyes. The other funny part about it was that definitely with the censorship, because on American TV they couldn't show the actual raw show. In the early episodes of Dragon Ball, the TV show, or the anime, I should say,
Astro Boy, Speed Racer, Gigantor. First aired in America in the 1960s. 10 seconds on Google. 10 seconds on the Google machine. It was the first time anyone's ever seen anime in America. It was 1980s, late 1980s, early 1990s. Astro Boy, Speed Racer, David International Records, thank you very much. Gigantor, late 1960s.
There's nudity. Goku, as a kid, full on has nudity. Full frontal nudity as a child. Now, today we'd all be like, oh! But in Japan, they didn't think anything of it. It was a joke. It was meant to be funny. Like, Goku's growing up in the wilderness, so he doesn't understand that you need to wear clothes. He doesn't even understand why. He's like, why? You could just be nude. There's no big deal. All the animals are nude, so why is it a big deal for me? But that's part of the joke. And I remember they censored it out. Like, they would show Goku with a maple leaf over his junk. And it totally wasn't in the shot. You could tell it was superimposed on it, and it was like, what the hell? So as a kid, imagine you're watching TV shows like G.I. Joe, right? Thundercats, which has a heavy anime influence, by the way. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right? And then all of a sudden you turn on, his Dragon Ball is on TV, and you're like, what is this show? It is so wild and different. Now, Dragon Ball is very slapstick, okay? It is. A lot of slapstick comedy and stuff like that. However, really, for me, The big thing that made anime so popular in the United States was Dragon Ball Z. Because up to then, like, you knew it on the fringes. You knew Dragon Ball existed. You knew Sailor Moon was a thing, right? I remember Sailor Moon. And also, there's one of all the things to put on Americanized TV, Ronin Warriors was syndicated and put on American TV in the mornings. I don't know why, but it was one of the early animes that we were able to watch here. But then when Dragon Ball Z hit, it was like a ginormous explosion of popularity. Like, all right, let me put it in perspective. Like, every generation seems to have something in pop culture that becomes the thing for you, right? For some generations, that's the Lord of the Rings trilogy, right? And I don't just mean the movies, I mean the books. Like, that's in pop culture, oh my god, Lord of the Rings, amazing fantasy. But for some people, Dragon Ball Z is actually that thing. That, like, wow, it was a cultural phenomenon, right? These characters were iconic. The plot lines, the themes of heroism and never giving up and always finding a way to overcome and succeed over insurmountable odds. These were all things that became synonymous in worldwide culture, not just Japanese, but worldwide culture. And I remember when Dragon Ball Z started...
That's been something that's been going on for centuries, for millennia, since the dawn of human history. I wouldn't be surprised if there was animals that were smart enough to, like, they tell stories, like, I'm sure dolphins, chimpanzees, bonobos, orangutans. I'm sure that they're smart enough to be like, oh yes, there was a mighty leopard that was hunting the tribe, and one of our kind was able to figure out how to sharpen this stick and wait for it to get close and stabbed it and chase it away and keeping the tribe safe forever. Oh, wow, he overcame insurmountable odds. That wasn't a thing until Dragon Ball Z. Snort.
Airing on TV, right? Like, everything changed. People started talking about this show all over the place. In school, in the arcades. It was the thing people talked about. And it was weird because at the time, you couldn't actually get it for home use. You had to watch it on TV. And then they started selling, like, the videotapes of it. I had a friend who was into competitive Street Fighter, okay? And one day we all went over his house. He had a bookcase full of VHS tapes that were all recorded off of... We're like, what is that? Oh, that's my Dragon Ball Z collection. That's the whole show. And on American TV, they were still in the Frieza saga. So we were like, wait, what? How do you have the whole show? Oh, because it's Japanese, and this is the actual Japanese cut. I got bootlegs. I actually ordered them and had them mailed, and I have the whole thing. They're all bootleg, like, recordings of the Japanese show with subtitles, but I own the whole series. So this guy owned it. He probably spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to get this before you could get it on a real tape that you could buy at a store.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars, really? No, DSP. Thousands? I can definitely see that. Hundreds of thousands? No, what the fuck are you talking about?
But it's just absolutely wild, the popularity that Dragon Ball Z had. And really, again, you can argue, oh, yeah, but Sailor Moon was out already, and this was out, and that was out. Like, someone was saying, oh, Robotech in the 80s. No. I get what you're saying. That was like, here's a wall, and I take a pick, and I start to hammer a little hole into the wall. Dragon Ball was, we took a 3 million pound drill and just plowed through the fucking wall, and the floodgates opened, right? Like, this is when Japanese culture, particularly anime, started to explode in popularity in the United States. It was Dragon Ball Z that did it, okay? And the funny part was...
Did Dragon Ball Z help? Definitely. But much like the British invasion starting with the Beatles, if it weren't for the Beatles, something else would have done it. Do you really think the Rolling Stones never would have made it anywhere? Just saying.
Games like Dragon Quest had already been popular and had prominence, but no one really knew that that was Akira Toriyama until Dragon Ball Z got huge, and then all of a sudden people were like, wait a minute, that looks the same, because it's the same guy. He made the same character design, same art style, that's him. And like, wait a minute, you're playing Chrono Trigger, what the hell? Why does the art look so good in this game? It's amazing, because it's Akira Toriyama. The guy's a creative genius. His art style is so unique, so recognizable, right? Whenever you would see his art, you'd be like, holy crap, I recognize that style, you know? And so, the funny thing is, like, people, I feel, don't even know. A lot of people might have done something that was Toriyama inspired, or he was directly had his hand in, and you don't even realize it, you know? As I was thinking about all the times in my life, all the great stuff that I've done that was Akira Toriyama inspired. So you got original Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, of course the later spin-offs he didn't have a hand in, but they're all from his own creations, right? Like his, you know, Dragon Ball GT, Dragon Ball Super, and all of that. The entire Dragon Quest series, which started in the United States, it was called Dragon Warrior, and they tried to more like almost westernize it, and the art was changed and everything on the box, which is weird. Like, you have Toriyama art, and you change the art on the box to make it look like it's not Japanese, which is a really odd choice, but that's what they did. But then after a few years, having like Dragon Warrior 1, 2, and 3, they actually decided to then start calling them Dragon Quest, which is really what it was called in Japan, And then you started to realize, wait, okay, this is the same guy. That's why the art in the game looks like Dragon Ball, because it's the same guy, right? And then definitely I would say Chrono Trigger for me is one of my favorite games of all time. And the art style is just so inspiring in that game to see characters that look like Toriyama characters, you know, fighting and in an RPG setting like that. So awesome. Was it also Secret of Mana? Was also inspired by? I don't want to say that and be wrong, but I feel like Secret of Mana also inspired by the Toriyama character designs, right? I think either he directly had a hand in it or whatever. I think maybe originally, but I swear those characters, if they're not him, they look like they're influenced by him. You know what I'm saying? It's that unique Square Enix design. But then even years later, you know, after that, he did other mangas. Like there's a game coming out this year called Sandland. And you're like, what is Sandland? That's a Akira Toriyama manga. You may not realize it, and then you see the promo for Sandland, you're like, why does it look like Dragon Ball? Why does it look like Dragon Quest? Because it's him. It's his work. You just don't remember it. You know, you're like, what is that? One that, it's like a forgotten gem for me that most people don't talk about today is Blue Dragon. Anyone remember that game? That was a game during the time of Mr. Walker Studios, where Toriyama, Nobuo Uematsu, and other former, like, Square Enix Final Fantasy game devs teamed up to make a few games, and Blue Dragon was one of them, and everything in that game is Toriyama inspired. Every character is drawn by him and created by him. All of it. And it's great. I love that game. Like, I played it when it was new. Then I played it years later as a YouTuber. It was in my early days of direct capture, I believe, like 2014, 2015 I played it. So, you know, that's an amazing...
Tell us on the details of the game. Because he can't gin brains a hell of a drug.
Game. I would love to go back and play it again someday. Because it's such a great game. Great music, too. Great unique soundtrack there. Anyway, the point I'm making here is, it's rare, all right, in our time, to say that someone is so influential to so many people. We would probably be very hard-pressed today to sit down and say, I have never been influenced by Akira Toriyama. It's a very rare statement to make. You've probably watched, played, or been involved with something that was Toriyama inspired or created over the course of your life. Some of us way more than others. Like I said,
and of course, he's been parodied to death. Simpsons did it.
Dragon Ball Z was humongous in the 90s. I watched the show every time religiously when a new episode aired on TV. I was totally into the lore of it, and my friends were so into it. And over the years, I played so many video games that were Toriyama inspired as well as a YouTuber, right? And it's amazing the reach he had and how many people's lives he touched, just with his creativity and his talent, right? I mean, another thing, let's be honest, the fact that the guy's not problematic, right? It's not like, oh, he's one of those guys where you love his work, but everyone hates him personally. No, the guy was well-loved. He was actively involved in so many different projects because he's such an awesome creative mind. And someone like that, that's someone who's not replaceable. You know what I mean? Like, no one's going to step in and be like, I'm Toriyama. No, he is one of a kind. And it's amazing what he's done, and his legacy will live on. Sad that we lost him, but at the same time, man, the awesome influence he's had on humanity, right, as a whole, the creative wonder, the sense of adventure in everything that he ever created is incredibly unique. And, you know, for me, growing up, seeing his influence around, for me, he was the reason why Japanese culture and anime crossed over to the West in the way that it did. If it wasn't for Toriyama, you never would have seen anime explode in popularity and have this kind of culture crossover like we...
Sailor Moon was also out. Guess what? People loved it. A lot of people did. And of course, Cowboy Bebop was also huge. Ghost in the Shell was also huge. Maybe not at the same time as Dragon Ball, but they all became pretty fucking popular. If you were to ask him to name 10 anime, he'd be Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Z spinoff, other Dragon Ball Z spinoff, and Dragon Ball? DSP. Again. Since the 60s and 70s, there's been manga and anime in America. Before it got translated and all that and bought out by bigger companies, it was already here. Japan influence was already in America since before then. Because guess what America has? A lot of Japanese people. When I was 7 years old, I don't remember seeing any Japanese people in my Connecticut private school. Congratulations. When you're 7 years old, you don't remember seeing Japanese kids in your school. Doesn't mean Japanese people didn't exist. The way he's talking about it's like, yeah, guys, Japan didn't exist, and all of a sudden in 2002, it just burst from the ocean. This new island, guys. The fuck?
We've had in the last 20 to 30 years, it was kind of there before, but it was the Dragon Ball stuff that, boom, broke the walls down, right? So to Mr. Toriyama, thank you for everything. Rest in peace. And your legacy will live on. There you go. That's the best I can do, anyway. So, all right. Pretty sad.
All right, pretty sad, guys. Now, where's my tips?
But it is what it is. Now, there's this other game, Sandland, coming out this year. And I think a lot of people kind of had their eyes on it. But we're like, nah, I don't know if I'm interested or not. You know, a lot of people, Sandland isn't like the most popular manga that Toriyama's done. But now that he's passed away, how much do you want to bet? People are going to be all over that game now and be like, oh, wow, basically like the final Toriyama game to be made because now he's gone. But at the same time, guess what? It's an RPG. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Really, DSP? He's dead. How to make it about me? There's another RPG coming out, guys. I am burnt out on RPGs. How dare Toriyama make an RPG game? Holy fuck, DSP. I'm ending this here before I head to fly to Seattle and beat the shit out of you on your day off. That, guys, I'm gonna let you go. Thank you for watching. As always, like, subscribe, comment down below, and have one hell of a day.